Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a fully dynamic navigation for your website using Bricks Nestable Nav. As you may already know, the Bricks Nestable Nav doesn't pull data from the WordPress menu system. So sometimes you will have to build out your menu items manually. That means if you get to add a new post type or a new page, or maybe a new post under a specific post type, you will have to manually update the navigation. This may not be very convenient for a lot of users, and building a dynamic menu using the bricks loop in the Nestable Nav can be very challenging because things don't just work the way they work in ordinary circumstances. So I'm going to show you what I mean. In this video, I'm going to be using my template, which is the Mega Menu Pro, and I just want to point out that you don't need to use my template to follow along because this tutorial is about building dynamic navigation, and you can do that with the default Bricks Nestable Nav. Of course, I'm using the Nestable Nav, but the Mega Menu Pro is just a highly customized version of Bricks Nestable Nav, so it's just for the styling. But if you're using the native Nestable Nav, then you wouldn't miss anything, you'll follow along. And so it's not so much about the styling, it's about the dynamic aspect of the navigation. So we have a navigation here with three different kinds of nav items, and we have the drop down, we have the mega menu, and then we have the regular link item. So I'm going to start by looking at how can we turn this into dynamic items. So the first one we're going to look at are the regular link items. So I'm going to go in here and then I'm going to click on this, and this is the last link item, which is customized as a button. But you can see that we have two link items here and one extra as a button, but I've gone ahead to delete one of them because I need to loop this one. And then this is the last item, which is the button. So I want to loop this, but the problem is you can't loop it. There is no option to loop here. This is a link item and you can loop it. So we are not going to be able to loop that. So what are we going to do? How will we build this dynamic content if we are not able to loop it? So what we can do is we have to replace this with a different element. So let's say you had a link item here. You are no longer going to use this link item. So we're going to make use of a div. So I'm going to drop in a div here, and then I'm just going to call this my link loop, and I'm going to drop in a basic text there, and that is just going to be my link text. Now this link, the link text, you want to make sure that you set it to span. You don't want it to be a paragraph. And the link loop, you want to make sure that the tag is a link. And then I'm just going to say select link type. I'm just going to say dynamic data. We're going to link it to post link. So whatever we are doing, we want to link it to the post link. Okay. So that is the URL will be the post link. And here I'm going to give it I'm going to remove this text, and here will be the post title. So the post title is going to show up there. Now we have not set the loop yet, so this is taking the place of this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, so I don't need that. So that is going to take the place of. So if I click save and I go to the front end, so you can see that I have this link item. It's linking to this current post, so that is why it's showing us this style. But for now, let me just make this custom URL and then put the hash there. Save and let this refresh. Now you can see that it's not properly aligned. That is just styling. That is because it is not the default link element, so therefore it probably doesn't have the same styling. So what I can do is to go in there and just go to set this to display as flex and center it. And okay, seems that didn't do anything. I think this is, I thought I did something there. Didn't I center it? I thought I did that. Let's save it again. That is okay. Now for us to loop this, we're going to go here and we're going to say query loop, turn on query loop. Now I have a custom post type that I want to use. Now I have a custom post type called movies, and there we have different movies, and then we have other movies under each some of them. For example, we have superhero as the top level, and then we have these ones under as the child pages or child posts of the superhero. The same with this. We have legends and we have these. We have kingdom and we have these. We have spy and we have these under. So this is just the way I set up mine. I mean, this, however you want to set up yours, it's all okay. But this really doesn't matter right now. It's the looping, you know, that really matters. So I've already turned this on and it defaults to posts. So it's already showing the posts. Let's check post type. It's gonna be movies, and all right, it's gonna start listing all the movies. But in my own case, I don't want to list all the movies. I just want to list the top level. So to do that, I'm gonna say child of. So this field is asking you the post ID of the parent. Now we don't want any movie that has a parent post. We want the one that doesn't have a parent. Now, what can you do? You can put a space, you can hit your space bar, and that will just filter it to the ones that doesn't have parent. But I think it's always better, instead of using an empty space and an empty character, so that later on you will understand what you were doing, it's always better to just make it 0. 0 would work the same way as a space bar, because there is no other post that is going to have a post ID of 0. Let's look at the front end. All right. Styling already applied. Good. Now in the back end here, the styling is not going to show up because this is not the default element. So that means you'll have to maybe create a style at the back end here that will mirror what you're seeing in the front end, depending on your setup. But if you're using the Mega Mini Pro, I have some, you know, CSS that I can give you. I'm going to share that now. I have that CSS somewhere here, which I have placed in this code block. So I'm just going to copy the whole of the code block and bring it here and paste. All right. Now, once I paste that code block, you see, it just styles, you know, it moves the style to the inside the builder. So if you're not using the Mega Mini Pro, you could just style it yourself, give it the spacing and all, because this is a custom link item. Therefore, the style for the default items is not going to apply. Now, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies, but I don't want 5 of them. I want like maybe just 2 or 3. So I'm going to limit that loop to only maybe 2, because I need space in the navigation. So I'm going to just make it like 2 movies. Okay, maybe 3. Okay. So that is how to loop the single link items. The next thing we're going to look at is how to loop the mega menu. Now let's look at that. So I've clicked on this mega menu, and then I have no place to enable the query loop. The same problem. Now if I wrap this with a div, I'm just going to call it mega loop. I can actually loop this, but I've wrapped in a div. Let's see what happens when we wrap it in a div. Oh, so once we wrap it in a div, it just breaks everything. So that mega menu jumps outside the div. It doesn't allow it to stay and screws up the rest of the items. And this is just the way the Bricks Nestable Nav is. It doesn't allow you to wrap the mega menu drop down in a div. So, but for that to work, I have a trick to make that work. So the trick is to make this a list item. When you make that an LI, what is going to happen is that it's going to allow you to wrap it. I'm going to look at the front end, the markup, because we want to see what is going on. First of all, let's start from here. This is our button. Now, these are the 3 loops for the single links, but we have an extra item, which is just sitting down there. And this is what you're going to find when you are using the loop here. You really can't do anything about it. It's the limitation of the Bricks Nest loop, okay? So it creates an extra trail. That trail is invisible, but somehow the script for the nav nestable picks it up. So I think there's something called the Bricks query trail that is attached to every loop element. It's just one single element at the end of it. So I believe the script that creates this list item picks it up and creates an extra list item, which creates an empty list item, which is not good for accessibility. And then I'm going to show you how to deal with that. Secondly, let's look at this. So this is the mega menu that we wrapped in a div. You can see the structure is still good. You can't find that div. And even this, you can't find the div also. It still has a good structure. Okay. Now, look at this. This also creates an extra div. No, we wrapped it in a div. It also creates an extra div because that div is somehow moved away and converted into an LI. Okay, so it's just the way the Bricks Nestable nav is designed. So you have an extra list item here, which is also not good for accessibility, but we are going to deal with that. So how do we deal with that? Now, if I click here, now you won't see this in your browser if you haven't enabled it, but let me go to, let's go to accessibility. I think it's here. Accessibility. Now, I want to select this. So if I select this, you can see that it's showing role list item. If I select this, it's saying accessibility node not exposed. Because in that CSS that I gave you, if you're using the Mega Menu Pro, and if those of you who are not using the Mega Menu Pro, there's a CSS that I added there that removes the empty LIs from the accessibility tree. And that is this CSS. I'm going to make it available for you. This CSS adds visibility hidden to every empty LI. Now, if I turn off that CSS and I go back to the accessibility, you can see that it shows role list item, but it's empty. If I go back and enable that, and we go back to accessibility, it said accessibility node not exposed, element is not visible. This means this element will not be visible to assistive technology. Therefore, it's not going to mess up with the accessibility because they are empty. So that CSS ensures that even though these items are physically present in your structure, they are not part of the accessibility tree. Okay, so let's move to the next thing. So we have been able to wrap this in a div and get it to work. So what we're going to do now is to build a loop. Okay, so this would enable us to build a fully functional, a fully dynamic mega menu. Everything will be dynamic from the beginning to the end, including these drop downs. So we want to create, like, say, maybe 3 drop downs. Now, what I want to do in this case is I want to use these movies, and then these movies, we have movie categories. I want the top level of my menu to be my mega menu to be the movie categories. So action, fantasy, and sci-fi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. Yep, that mega loop, and turn on the loop. I'm going to go to this settings. I'm going to set it to terms. So terms is like the taxonomy. And then under the terms, I'm going to select the movie category. One thing I want you to take note is while you're working with dynamic data, dynamic menu inside your header template, you will not see most of these things show up. Most of the changes show up for some reason. Some of them will show up sometimes only the first item. Now, this is the mega loop. Now, this is the title of that mega menu element. Now, here is the text, mega menu, but I don't want that to be the text. I'm going to change this text to the term name. So I'm going to type term name. So we should show the names of the, okay, so action is showing. So you can see action. So I want to see action, fantasy, and sci-fi, but it's showing me only action, and that is just about what it's going to show. So I'm going to save that. Then let's go to the front end, and then I'm going to refresh it. Now, you can see that it's showing action, fantasy, and sci-fi. Okay, but it's broken things. For some reason, some of the styling, I'm going to walk you through all the challenges that I faced trying to build this. What I noticed was that this was broken because all the styles that were not applied to the class, some of them were stripped off. For example, this, we had a span on this, this div, the whole of the div that is the parent of all this. We had a span on it, and that span has stopped to work. So inside here, you can tell what element it is. So we can go select that. Yeah, that is the element. So we have span 3. Now, because it was not on a class, that style disappears on the front end for some reason. And that might be a Bricks bug, but I'm going to show you how to deal with that. So which means that if you want to style stuff inside the loop, anything that is inside the loop, I want you to use classes to style it, and that would preserve whatever styling you have. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to move all this to a class. So I'm going to use advanced thema to do that because it's very easy. So I'm just going to say export ID styles to classes. So I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to write the name of my class, and I just want to call it my I'm just going to call it mega mini block. You can give it any name you want, but the whole idea is to move this to a class. So I'm doing that, and let's save again and see what is happening in the front end. All right, you can see that that works. Now we have other problems here, and what I found out was that the UL, that's the unordered list, in this UL, the list tile is showing through, which is this, what we have, these black dots. So what I want to do here is just to go here, and I don't want to do anything to this class because I just want to clone this class. Okay, I'm just gonna say demo. So I'm cloning the class, so I'm going to remove this one because I don't want to mess with that class. So what I want to do is to make sure that I remove that list style from there. So I'm going to say root list style none. Let's save it and go back to the front end. So we see that we don't have it here. So we're going to transfer all that to the rest of them. But instead of transferring it, because we're going to loop all this anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to come here. So we have this nav group, this, and this. So we need just one of these. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to remove this. Because at the end of the day, we need just one because we're going to loop that too. But for now, let's duplicate that one to make it still 3. And save. Now, like I mentioned earlier, when you're working with the loop, there are some things that will not show up even when you preview it on the front end while you are in the template preview mode. That means for it to work, you actually have to assign this view this on a page that this template is assigned to. For example, if it is assigned to the whole website, you can view this header on any page other than the preview, okay? Because there are certain things that will not show up here. And as we go along, I'm going to show you. Now, for now, some of these are showing up, but as we go along, some things will not show up. So we have our action, fantasy, and sci-fi. And now, the next thing we want is, for these titles, we want these titles to be, for under action, we want the titles here. Each of these will be a page, a top level page under action. This will be top level pages under fantasy, and these will be top level pages, the titles, top level pages under sci-fi. So let's go back to the movies and all movies, and you can see that the top level page is superhero, legend, kingdom, spy, pursuit, like that. So what I want to do here is, to query that nav group. So I'm going to come here to this nav group. Okay, let's make this smaller. And I'm going to query it. So I'm going to query that nav group, and then now because we are inside, now this is now inside the term. Remember that the top query, the very top query is a term. This is a term. So we are querying something else inside it, and we still want it to be the movies. Okay, we want it to be the movies because the terms was for the movies. And we also want to change the title because it's in that loop. That title will now be the post title. Okay. Now, so let's go back to that loop. So it's showing all the post titles. But we want to query only the top level. Okay. So I'm going to come here and say child of. So we want only the top level items. So I'm going to save this, and let's go back to the front end. So we see all of them are the same, but we don't want all of them the same. We want only the movies that are under these categories to show up here. Only the movies that are under this category to show up there. To do that, we have to do one more thing in that query. We have to go all the way down and go to taxonomy query and then select that movie category. And for field, we're going to choose the term ID, and for terms, we're going to choose the term ID. and we're going to save that. And it's already, showing up that something has changed here. But when we go to the front end, we don't really see anything except these two static contents, which we were supposed to delete. Okay. Remember the nav group that I said were static? Okay. So I'm going to save that. And the whole thing is empty. So why is it empty? That leads us back to what I said, that once you start querying certain things, it's not going to show up in the template preview. Okay. So what we want to do is I'm going to go to the page that I assigned this template to, which is a dynamic nav. Okay. That's what I call that page. So that is the page. You can see my URL has changed, even though the content looks the same, but it's a different URL. Now, if I check it, you can see that all my stuff is showing up. So under action, I have spy, pursuit, and superhero. Under fantasy, I have kingdom, legend, and superhero. And under sci-fi, I have pursuit, legend, and spy. So of course, it's obvious that some of these movies are under more than one, under more than one category. So you can see that all the movies that are under action, the top level movies, are the one we are seeing here: spy, pursuit, superhero, and all that. Now the next thing is that under kingdom, we want to query all the subchildren, or some of them, all the of kingdom. Under legend, we want to query the ones for legend. For example, under superhero, we want to query all this to be what we have under here. So to do that, I'm going to select this, and what we're going to query here, because you have to know what to query. This is the unordered list. What you want to query is the list item. So I'm going to delete this too. And then I'm going to select this, and I'm going to turn on the query, and it's going to be post type will still be movies. Let's do this so we can see what is going on. Post type will be movies. Okay. And then child of will be, we're going to put a dynamic data because we want it to be child of this post. For each of them that is going to query, we want it to be child of their respective parent post. So it's going to be child of, then we're going to put a dynamic data there, post ID. Now for this title, we want to change this to post title, which will be the name of the sub movie. And let's save that and look at it on the front end. So you can see under superhero, we have Final Justice, Dark Villains, Ultimate Showdown, and all that. So you can see here. And then under spy, we have this. The same thing here, the same thing here. So we have each of the movies that were under each of their parent posts are showing up under the respective post. So first of all, we have a fully dynamic navigation. So if you ever created, another category and you created other movies and assigned them, they will automatically be added and they will show up here. And what are we going to do with this? Because title, all these are the same. The CTA button, all of them are the same. So what the next step is to go ahead and do something about this. And this has to be linked to this navigation. It has to be linked, it has to be linked to this taxonomy. So what we are going to do is to create a custom field that we can take a custom title and maybe a description. And then, we have to link this button. First of all, let's do what we can do. Let's go to now what I did was I used ACF and I created custom field. So ACF, go to field group, and then I went and created a new field group. And that field group, I said, show if taxonomy is equal to all. That I wanted you to apply to all the taxonomies, not just the movies, in case I wanted to do the same thing with post pages. But if you wanted to limit it to only the movies, then I would have just said movie category. Okay, so I made this custom field to be available to all taxonomies. Now, that's the only thing I did. Then I created a field and I called that category menu title. Now, if you go back to movies and you go to the movie categories, and then let's say you click on action, you can see that category menu title. Okay, now we didn't need to create an extra field for that description text that is here. You see this text? Because by default, categories already have description. So I just decided to place the description text there. So you can see action, I place a text there. For fantasy, I place a title and I place a text here. The same thing that I did for sci-fi. Okay, so we can go back now to this, and we can click on this, and instead of that we'll just say title. You see the ACF there, category menu title, and then here I'm going to clean this out and just go to description, term description. These are default. This is the default WordPress term description. Then for the CTA, I could just say all, then I put term name, all action movies. I think that's basically all, but then I need to give it, I need to link it. So the link type will be dynamic data, then term URL, because that should lead to the term, the overall term archive URL. So the term URL. So that should link to, like, for example, if it is action, it should link to the action archive. But you could do it any way you want, depending on what you want to link it to. So now you can see action title, fantasy title, sci-fi title, and all the description, all action movies, all fantasy movies. You could check that URL down there at the bottom left of the screen, that the URL there is going to movie category fantasy, and this URL is going to movie category action. So we have completed a fully dynamic navigation, right? So this is how you build a dynamic navigation with the Bricks Nestable Nav. Now, one more thing, you can also build a semi-dynamic navigation. For example, we have not done anything to this drop-down. So let's say we wanted to build just, something separate. Because everything doesn't have to be 100% dynamic. For example, for this. So for the drop-down, we could say, okay, we don't really want to do all dynamic. We want to do part dynamic. So I said, okay, I want to put superhero, only the superhero movies there. I want this to have a superhero title and then drop down all movies that are under superhero. So I could just come here and just call this superhero. Now notice that I have to type that, manually. Okay. I call that superhero, and then inside the content, I'm going to remove this. All of this, I'm going to remove it. And remember that we can't loop the nav link. So I'm going to take this link loop that I created. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to come and drop it there, as that will give us what we want to use for our looping. And I'm going to delete the original text link there. Now this is already a loop, but I want to show only the movies that are under superheroes. So how do I do that? The post type is already movies, but how do we show only movies that are under superhero? So you want to take your cursor and place it on the edit link there, and look at the bottom left corner, and you're going to see the post ID, or you can click and open it, and here you will find the post ID of this superhero, and then you can take it and go there and drop it there. So all children of superhero are going to show up here, and I don't want to limit it. I want to show everything, so all of them are showing up. That is how you do a semi-dynamic, because some things are manually done. For example, I could duplicate this, and then I could say for the second one, I want only the movies that are under legends, and let me check the post ID for legend, and then I'm going to copy that and come here, write legends here, and inside that loop for legends, I'm going to replace that post ID with the post ID of legend. And if we go to the front end, you're going to notice that we have superheroes. Now we have legend. So everything now is dynamic and functional. If you go to the mobile breakpoints, they work great. Back to superhero, back to legends, action. Under action, you have action title, superhero, spy. You go back. The same thing with here. So that is basically how you build a dynamic navigation using the Bricks Nestable Nav. Of course, it is not possible to cover all use cases. That is why I had to mix it, show you how to query terms, query post under terms and all that. So that is how far we're going to go on building dynamic navigation with Bricks Nestable Nav. So if you learned something in this tutorial, let me know in the comment section, hit the like button. And if you want to get the Mega Menu Pro, you could get it here at Gumroad. I'm going to put a link in the description and you're going to see a link right here. So get it from Gumroad and use it to build your mega menu. I'm going to be bringing out more videos. We're going to build more mega menu live examples. And I think the next one we're going to do will be the Stripe mega menu. Until next time, do have a great day. Bye.